Hi, everybody. Hi, Marco. Hi, Trisha. Welcome to the webinar, everybody. Oh, it's not quite 11 yet, so let's be accurate and wait for whoever is coming right at 11. Yeah. Well, first of all, welcome already. So let's spend that time already in a good way. It's great to see so many people actually attending this webinar. I don't know if you can all see that, but we have 250 people now, which makes me very excited and slightly nervous, but we'll get to that later. Yeah, so now it's 11 and the official start of the webinar. Yeah, welcome everybody. It's so great to see so many people of you, and it's so great yeah, to also have you here, Marco and Trisha from all over the globe, basically. Before we start, I would like to give you a short intro into the format and maybe some housekeeping. We said we want to make this as interactive as possible, and we already see a few first questions coming into the Q&A section, which is great. To be fully transparent, we might have more people than we thought we would get for this webinar, so let's see if we can get to all of these answers, but we will try to bring them into the natural flow of this session and yeah, try to answer as many questions for you as possible. Just to be fully transparent with you and also to give you a bit more information on what to expect in the next 60 minutes. So if you expected something else, feel free to jump out. We're gonna be doing a webinar that is a little bit different to what you probably usually see. So we're trying to do this a bit in a podcast interview style. We will not be sharing any slides during this session, but you can already see, or you can see that there's a document, a PDF, which basically contains all of the information that we're discussing and more, which you can download and feel free to share how you would like to share it. And yeah, what we want to do with this webinar basically is bring this PDF that you can download a little bit more to life, and also to give you the possibility to ask questions to our experts. Yeah, why are we doing this? Despite being proactive and despite like being present at conferences and things like this, we receive the feedback every now and again that people are afraid to talk to us, believe it or not, and they think they cannot talk to your notified body, whoever that might be. And yeah, we're basically trying to change that perception a little bit to show you that we are also human beings and that you can talk to us and that we are more than happy to talk to you. Even if you sometimes might not know what to ask us, or yeah, don't know how to ask us, we are happy to communicate with you, and we're happy to have a discussion with you. Yeah, I mentioned that there's the document that you can download. You will also find in that document, because one of the things that we're also trying to do is not just send you information, but most importantly also receive information from you. Like, what do you need? What are your questions when it comes to conformity assessments and things like that? So in that document, you can find a QR code that you can just take a picture of, and then it would be awesome if you could just send us some feedback to the document and see if there are any aspects in it that you would like us to cover in the future. Also for this webinar, there will be a feedback questionnaire, and it would be great if you could take a little bit time to give us some feedback on that, in particular on this format, how you liked it, but also on the information that we basically shared with you. Because for us, it's really important to understand what is it that you need and what is the information that you need to make this whole topic of conformity assessment more transparent for you, so you know what is going on, basically. Okay. Housekeeping for now. Oh, and I already saw a first question in regards to the PDF, by the way. Unfortunately, it is not available in German as of now. So yeah, but feel free to put that in as feedback, which you already did, but also into the document so we can address that. Okay, this is the housekeeping. Now let me introduce to you our participants, or let them introduce themselves, basically. So yeah, Marco, why don't you kick it off? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and also what brought you to TÜV Süd?
Thanks, Malte. Hi, everybody. My name is Marco. I am part of TÜVSÜD since 2018. I'm a biomedical engineer by education. And within TÜVSÜD, I am the global director for the software product assessment team, which is a great team of experts in software, AI, and cybersecurity. And we are in charge of the technical documentation assessment, both under MDR and AVDR. In my previous experience, I was always in R&D for dialysis machines and for software as a medical device. And I'm a programmer since 20 years, still actively doing that. I'm based in Italy, and I'm from Tuscany. I come from a very small village up on a hill of 150 people, so little tiny one. And that is quite well known for a Amiga game back in the 80s and 90s from one of the person from the village, which is Kickoff 2 by Dino Dini. And I know him personally, so that was my first touch with the software, let's say, when I was a kid on that.
That might also put you in a certain age bracket, Marco.
Yeah, I'm 40, so I've just turned 40, so yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Trisha, how about you?
Hi, hello everyone. So I'm Trisha Punj, Principal AI Software Assessor at TÜV. I've been working in the field of software and AI for over 10 years now. And within TÜV, my focus has been more on AI standardization, basically contributing to the development of the assessment frameworks and guidelines. So I do assessments for medical AI-based products. What really interests me about this space is the balance between innovation and regulation, which is hard to maintain always. But yeah, looking at the various use cases is always interesting, and bringing in compliance perspective has been interesting to me so far. I'm based in Singapore, and yeah, I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. And just to stress the fact a little bit more, like you are the people who are actually looking at the files, when the people who are like in the chat or in the webinar right now, it's people like you who are looking at the documentation. And yeah, cool. Thank you so much. Yeah. My name is Malte. I'm usually located in Berlin, but right now I'm actually in Munich. I'm in the headquarters of TÜVSÜD, of our company. And yeah, I found my way to TÜVSÜD good 1.5 years ago. Yeah, before that, I always like to say I grew up in the healthcare space. So I'm a certified nurse. I worked at the ICU, at one of the ICUs in the Charité in Berlin, before studying medical engineering, and always wanting to work on the intersection between customers or users and the technology, to basically see, okay, how can we bring value to technology? Yeah, and in that role, I worked as a product person, product management manager, product leads in various companies. Also later on in the corporate venture and corporate ideation space. So I know a few things about what it is when you build a product and when you do this, yeah, based on hypotheses, and you basically don't know what you're building, but you know that you want to build something great. Yeah, and yeah, like I said, I live in Berlin, and just to share a little secret with you, I never thought that I would be working at a notified body before I started doing that. but here I am, and I'm super excited, yeah, to have the opportunity to try formats like this, and to basically bring more, like what you said, Trisha, to build the connect between innovation and regulation, as yeah, difficult or as opposite as that sometimes seems to be. I think this is something that is driving all of us. Yeah, you're probably missing one person. His name is Alek. He was going to join us, but yeah, life happens, and sometimes that's not possible. So yeah, you're going to be seeing the three of us, and while Alek was going to take over more the role for cybersecurity, we are basically doing that, the three of us, and I'm even though I'm not as much of an expert as Alek is by a long shot, I'm trying to give some answers to that as well. And this is what you can expect, basically. So we're going through, I don't know if all of you have already taken a look into the document that you can also download, but we're basically going through the 4 topics of the document and through 4 topics that we thought about, which could be relevant for you and which we also think are relevant for preparing for a CE certification. While again, this is our idea. If you have other ideas, feel free to share that. Feel free to give feedback on that document, scan that QR code. We're more than interested to hear that. So the 4 topics are, first of all, the foundational aspects for software devices. So what are the basics? If you've never thought about any regulatory topics, like where could you start, basically? Then software lifecycle process documentation. We already got a few questions about 62304, 81001-5-1, and all of these things, which is great. This is exactly what we're thinking about when we're talking about these things. But also a topic we want to talk about is cybersecurity. And last but not least, a very hot topic right now, which is AI. And these are the things we're going to be diving into. Again, ask questions. We see that there are a lot of questions already coming, and we try to squeeze them in wherever we see as possible. So I would kick it off with basically the foundational aspects of software devices and ask you, Marco, the first question. So when you meet software manufacturers, what do you think is the most common misconception that they have about the MDR certification and maybe us as a notified body or whatever? And why do you think that is? Where does this perception come from?
Yeah, I don't want to quote you, but you already said that in the introduction of the webinar, because I believe that the most common misconception is that manufacturers can talk to suit and can talk to notified bodies because suit is too complicated, because we are too big and we are too strict and so on. Basically, I think that there is a myth that is in the industry, and this can be confirmed by many of our customers because we have the possibility to have a dialogue with customers, both with big players and with startups of 2 to 5 people. So we have never had any issues in this conversation with the customers. And one of the tools that we can use, especially in the early stages, is the structured dialogue, which has been introduced with one of the MDCGs a couple of years ago, where this possibility has been formalized. And you can hand in a request to meet with us and discuss. Of course, we cannot provide any consultancy service to you, and that is very clear, because we cannot jeopardize our independence and impartiality. But we can have a dialogue. We can share perspectives, and we can understand each other better to achieve a better planning, to have a better preparation of the technical documentation, as well as for the audit. This is typically done in preparation for a conformity assessment procedure, but also during the conformity assessment procedure, you receive a list of questions, or we call it the deficiency report, which contains some gaps or questions that we didn't understand. And it is completely okay for you to give us a call and ask for a clarification. What do you mean with this question? What is your perspective on this? We cannot give you an answer. We cannot tell you what to do, because you are way better than us in identifying a solution. And that's probably the best thing that you have to keep in mind. But you have also to convince us or let us understand what is your proposal, your technical proposal. That is for sure the most common misconception that I've seen so far.
Yeah, I always phrase it a little bit like, it's a bit like a relationship with a therapist. So we might not give you the answers you're looking for, but we are most certainly are able to ask you questions that might help you to understand the way we're thinking. And just another thought that sparked one of the other misconceptions that might be connected to that, and why people think we don't want to talk to people, it might be that people think we don't have capacity, and that's why we don't have the time to talk to people. But to burst another myth here, yeah, this could also not be further from the truth. I mean, if we have time to speak to you in a webinar, we also have time to speak to you on the phone, obviously. Yeah, another critical topic, or another topic that pops up, in particular with customers that are fairly, I would say, early on in their regulatory journey, is yeah, the question of risk class. Like, what risk class is my device? It seems like a riddle that can't be solved sometimes for customers. And yeah, they have questions about it. And why do you think, Marco, is it so tricky for manufacturers to figure this out and to find a very clear answer on that?
Yeah, I believe that for software, we are in a very special situation because one of the biggest additions in the MDR is the introduction of Rule 11, which was not there before under the MDD. And Rule 11 is not so easy to understand and to grasp. If you don't read very carefully the rule, and if you don't use very carefully the guidance documents such as the MDCG 2019-11 and the referenced IMDRF document, then you know, it's a bit complicated to get that done. So one of the issues that we have seen in manufacturers is that sometimes you guys are going straight to the classification. So you say, I have a medical device, this is risk class 2A. But the first thing that you have to do is to first do a qualification step. So you first need to understand if your product is a medical device or an accessory, according to the definition of the MDR. And only then you can understand if you can apply Rule 11, because that can only be applied for medical devices, or if you cannot. And then maybe you have to use implementing Rule 3.3, which is the software driving or influencing the use of a medical device. It's a bit complicated concept, but that is all included in the MDCG document. So first you need to start with a clear qualification based on the definition of medical device, and the qualification step needs to be done based on a clear intended purpose. So you don't have to use you know, unclear statement for intended purpose or partially cloudy statements where you try to mix some marketing nuances, you know, in your intended purpose. That needs to be very clear, and you have to take full responsibility of that, because that is what your patients and physicians and doctors will use in the end. So that is another clear step. So first a good intended purpose, then a good qualification, and then a classification in this order.
Yeah, yeah, I like what you say, because that means purpose first, understanding why you're building something, which is fairly close to my heart as a former product person. Like, ask the why, and once you answer the why, then you also understand the how, and also the other why, which is like, okay, why should we go through the process of regulation? Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I used to say that this is like socks and shoes. First you wear your socks and then you wear your shoes. Otherwise, if you do it the other way around, it's a bit, you know, funny. So,
well, according to my kids, that sometimes works out as well, but that's a different story. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So Trisha, and also to, like, I have a question here, but also this is a question that came up in the chat. So from your experience, you're very experienced with all of these software topics and these devices that come in. So what are some pitfalls companies fall into early on, and what do you think? How can they avoid them, other than just watching webinars like that and reading our preparation guides? Like, what are pitfalls, and how can companies basically prepare for them to not fall into them?
Okay, so based on experience, one of the common pitfall is lack of clear, comprehensive description of the device.
Okay.
What do we mean by that? Basically, including the functionality, the technical specification, deployment setup, runtime environment, everything. it is very important to define like how the various components within the device are interconnected and combined together, and whether it is a medical device, whether it is accessory or a general purpose hardware or software, it should be clear enough how it is achieving its intended purpose and how each of these units are contributing towards the common intended purpose. So that is sometimes not clearly defined. Another pitfall is within the technical documentation itself that we see. It needs to be well structured, I would say. There are a lot of guidelines online, and following a structure makes it more smoother and traceable and easily searchable for us to follow the requirements from the NX2 and NX3 of the MDR, for example. So using any available best practices, guidelines really helps ensure that the documentation meets the expectation, and also the conformity assessment itself is smoother that way.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Yeah, you mentioned guidelines quite a bit. I guess it's also important that you make sure to understand where are these guidelines coming from, and that you are double checking if these guidelines are also something that your notified body might be might be seeing as valuable guidelines. Bringing in the other aspect of communication to your notified body. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, exactly. So, that really helps align both the sides and really provide a similar perspective to it, and align our understanding of the product itself. So that's very important.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. We're now bringing in a question from the audience. Thank you, Valentina, for submitting that. It's a bit of a longer question. According to the MDR Article 6110, is it acceptable for a software as medical device manufacturer, we like to call it medical device software, but that's okay, manufacturer to conduct the clinical evaluation without specific clinical data and therefore not demonstrate equivalency with other software as medical or medical device software? In that case, can the clinical evaluation be mainly based on clinical association, state-of-the-art software validation, usability, and post-market surveillance data? Marco, that might be one for you.
Yeah. So this would be a question that would probably fill a full webinar in its own, but I will try to keep it very short. The RAL conformity assessment procedures for clinical data are basically with or without clinical data, okay? And the without clinical data is according to Article 6110, when it is the manufacturer that claims that the device in question doesn't benefit for the addition of clinical data to demonstrate compliance with general safety and performance requirements. So that is the two ways. So is it possible for software manufacturers to use Article 6110? Yes, according to the MDR and based on the provision of the Article 6110. But that is only when it is really applicable. So if there is a clinical benefit specific for the device, or if it creates specific clinical benefit through the information created by the software, then it's a bit of a hard route to take. And if 6110 is applied, then you have to fulfill the performance to demonstrate the safety and effectiveness of the device to provision of data on the performance of the device using comparison with state-of-the-art, software validation, usability testing, and so on, and PMS data as well. A good guideline for this is the MDCG 2020-1, which is specific for the clinical evaluation of software of MDR and performance evaluation according to the IVDR. And that's a good one as well to provide you some context on how to, let's say, partition the different set of data that you have to use to demonstrate conformity.
Okay. Cool. Thank you so much. And that sort of closes the first chapter. Now we're diving a bit more into software lifecycle process documentation. And I saw there were a few questions for standards and things like that. And I think we are touching that topic now as well. And yeah, the first question goes again to you, Marco. So the documentation for software as medical device or medical device software sometimes feels overwhelming for these companies, for software companies in particular. So why is it so crucial to have a proper lifecycle documentation in regards to the MDR framework? And how can you actually use that documentation to your advantage as a manufacturer? Don't just see it as a burden, but actually use it to guide you. I know that's a big question to ask, but yeah, maybe you have some good answers for us.
I will try to give you my perspective, also personal take of that. So the MDR and the state-of-the-art standard like the IEC 62304 and 82304-1, but also the 81001-5-1, they all agree in saying that given the kind of obscure nature of the software, the only way to show that the software is safe is to demonstrate that it was developed and maintained following a structured and controlled set of processes. Mm-hmm. And these need to be documented by the manufacturer because you need to show this to a third party, like the notified body or the competent authority and so on. But documentation is also an enabler because if you guys create a clear and tidy documentation, this helps you with a smoother certification path. And also when questions from authority come through, and they come through, so you can have an easier way through that. So when we open a TD, for example, and we understand how the processes were implemented by the manufacturer, then it is much easier for us to state that is compliant to move on. So it is quicker, it is cheaper, it costs less rounds of questions, and it's less painful in the end for you as well. Yeah. When the flow is not fully clear, then of course we must ask questions to understand. That is our job, basically, to try to understand what it goes. And I've seen a question in the chat that was talking about standards, that they are a bit fixed in stone and rigid in terms of approaches. It looks like 62304 talks about a waterfall approach, while nowadays Agile is very important and very much used by everybody. And another guideline that I would like to recommend to the audience here is the AME-TIR 45, which is a specific guidance on how to approach the standard for Agile methods as well. Yeah. So I don't fully, let's say, agree with the fact that the standards are fixed and rigid, because we have many examples of companies that are smartly applying those standards in the conformity assessment. So
yeah, I guess that's just another. I mean, to be fair, that's just another perception of how these things are, and another. Yeah, give us more feedback on these things, for example, as well. Like if this is something you wanna learn more. I also see here a question from Alfonso. Thank you so much. Which is asking, and which is fairly relevant to what you just said, also asking about like quality management systems, how to set them up, how to stay lean, how to stay agile, how to keep pivoting your product, and all of these topics. This is like in your hands because you guys set up, or you people set up the QMS, so it's partially on your side. And again, having a close connection to your notified body and also understanding what is a significant change in all of these topics. I don't want to open a can of worms, but what I would like to encourage you, like, please send us feedback if you want to learn more about this. We are more than happy to set up the next webinar on topics like that. But to come back to documentation a little bit, and to also maybe startups or other companies, and to the sort of maturity of companies. When you want to understand, Marco, when you want to understand how mature a manufacturer is in regards to basically their regulatory compliance and their overall setup, QMS, and whatever else is part of it, what kind of documents do you look for right away? Like, what is your eagle eye view when you have the basically the digital pile of documents on your desk? What do you look for to understand if a company has their processes in order and if they know what they're talking about, basically?
So I have a particular passion for the risk management file to see if the harms have been properly identified and estimated by the manufacturers, if the manufacturer has implemented like specific requirements from the standards, like the identifying the parts of the software that are contributing to hazardous situation and the potential causes of failure that are linked to the hazardous situation. And all this needs to be coherent with the intended purpose, with the clinical data, with the instructions for use, and ultimately also with the classification of the device, both from regulatory perspective and the software system safety classification according to 62304. And then after seeing with this eagle eye view the device, then I typically jump into the system and software requirements to see how they are created by the manufacturer and how they are then developed in a software architecture. And these tell us a lot about how seriously basically the manufacturer is taking the documentation job, because the requirements are actually the specification of what the software is doing. And so also on how detailed they are written, they can represent easily how much, care is taken by the manufacturer on the documentation itself. But it's not a matter of care, it's a matter of clarity, completeness, and adequacy to the intended purpose and to the device itself. So once the requirements and architecture are clear to me, then all the rest comes as a consequence. So the design documentation by itself, the segregation of the measures, and ultimately the verification and validation documentation is the one that provides us the proof that the requirements are met in the final product. So also that part of the documentation is crucial for me, because there are multiple different ways to do the device, and of the testing done for the different aspects, the ones that are more linked to performance and safety should be better documented and better tested compared to the other ones that are more like nuances of visual cues that may be not linked to safety or performance activities of the device itself.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. Again, it sounds like having a red thread, basically go through your documentation, understand your risk, and then ticking the boxes, so to say, accordingly. Just one question. Michael asked, Marco, could you repeat the guideline you just mentioned? I believe that was the one in terms of the interpretation of agility. Yeah. Which one was that again?
It's the AAMI, TIR 45. Thank
you so much. Cool. Trisha, this one is for you. So let's be honest, and let's also be clear that paperwork is something that no one completely loves. I mean, Marco loves risk assessment documentation. That's one thing, but overall, how do you personally approach this, like reviewing the technical documentation of manufacturers, so it doesn't just feel like box ticking? Sorry. And I mean, you also evaluate like AI devices and things like that. Like, what is your personal take on that, or your practical take on that? Like, how do you approach these things so it's not just check?
Thanks for asking that question. I would say, being an AI professional, you don't like tick boxing everything. Yeah. So personally, I try to approach it with the mindset of understanding the device itself, not just verifying the documents. And because if it's just about tick boxing, AI can do it, right? The like do use internal tools also. But what we are trying to do here is understand the device, and I usually look for the story that the technical documentation tells, and how the manufacturer's design choices, risk management, clinical evidence, all these things connect and showcase that the overall device is safe and it performs as intended. So that really takes time, and like we really have to read a lot and to get into the shoes of that manufacturer, and then try to understand the products, the risks, and how it is assuring the overall safety of the product. Of course, we still need to make sure that the regulatory requirements are covered. But when you see the logic behind the documentation, how everything fits together, basically it becomes more meaningful assessment rather than just a comprehensive, just a compliance exercise, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But actually, like all of this is, with the upcoming technology and stuff like that, that brings me to another topic of cybersecurity. And I would like to ask a question to you, Malte, now.
Yes, I'm putting on my Alec hat now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, why has cybersecurity become such a big topic in the last years for medical devices? And why do you think it's becoming such a central focus of point for the regulation as well in EU and US, especially, and in particular to connected medical device?
Yeah, thank you. And I try to do my best to answer this question. So yeah, cybersecurity is a big topic, full stop, not just in medical devices. You hear it everywhere, and it's basically in every industry. It's becoming more and more relevant because not just in medical devices, but in medical devices in particular. And this is what we're here to talk about, not about infrastructure or anything like this. Medical devices basically have become increasingly more connected, digitized, whatever that might mean, and integrated into networks, into cloud ecosystems. They basically became more complex, right? And they are constantly sharing data. And which is great, and which helps clinical workflows and clinical processes and things like that. But at the same time, it's also making them part of a much larger attack surface. So it's not just the EKG machine that is sitting in a hospital office that you connect to a patient, and once a year, well, I don't know, every 5 years, potentially somebody comes with a floppy disk and does an update of the system. So we're not in that world anymore. These EKG machines have a Wi-Fi connection. They are hooked up to the patient records that are maintained in the office or in the cloud, and that are connected to an application potentially where the patient can review the latest stats and all of these things. So that just makes it clear that through this connectivity, we gain a lot, and we gain a lot of pros, of clinical workflows and things like that. But on the other side, that makes them more prone to cybersecurity risks. And to things like this. So, and to also make the clear connection here to safety, basically. I just said an EKG machine, there you might say, okay, this is not very dangerous. The biggest threat might be that data is leaking or something like that. That is one side of the coin, but the other side of the coin is that we have connected devices like insulin pumps, for example. And these insulin pumps are also connected to applications and things like this. So, and if you're able to control basically the insulin pump, and somebody's hacking that, then that is a serious safety risk. And this is something that is a proper danger for the patient. And so a compromised insulin pump is not just not just a matter of data loss; it's a matter of life-threatening risks, basically. So, is there a regulatory response to that? Yes, of course there is. And we have the US, the FDA, which we're not diving too deep in today because that's not our necessarily, at least for the certification part, not our specialty. If you want to talk about pen testing, of course we can also do that, but that would be a different topic. But they basically, regulation globally, I would say, basically requires cybersecurity becoming part of the risk management and to assessing these risks as part of an overall risk assessment. So in short, medical devices become more connected, in particular like IoMT devices, so Internet of Medical Things devices, and that makes it just so important that that cybersecurity is, again, you said checkbox before, Trisha, that it doesn't just become a checkbox, but that it's important that you own that topic and that you see it like that, and that's what the industry, the regulators, have also realized, and this is to answer your question, long story short, this is why this has become or is becoming such a big topic.
Perfect.
Yeah, Malte, I have something to add to this because you mentioned penetration testing before. So sometimes we hear companies saying, "I've done my pen test, it's fine, I'm done. Don't want to hear about this anymore." But we all know that there is a big difference in companies saying the product is secure, or can we say that the product is secure, or do we need to do something more other than the testing, which is still something that we struggle to get sometimes.
So two things. First of all, I would say doing your pen testing once is great. It's better than not doing any pen testing at all, to be very clear about that. But cybersecurity is not a state. It's not something that I do and then it's done. It's more like a process. And also to maybe dive a little bit into the wording that you use. If somebody says our device is cyber secure, that would be a first, I wouldn't say red flag, but it would definitely be a flag to see, okay, if somebody says their device is cyber secure, there might be something more to look into here. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because a device is never fully cyber secure. You can basically just not state that. So what you can do is you can increase the cybersecurity of a device or of a product for a defined use case, for example, for a defined environment, for a certain threat model at a given point in time. And this is basically also what you do in a penetration test to do that. But that doesn't mean that that is basically a permanent state that will stay like that. So So the key, to answer your question again, is to basically demonstrate evidence that cybersecurity is part of the product lifecycle, basically. And so again, this is due to the dynamic nature of the environment. So it's different than, say, you did a biocompatibility test of your knee implant, or your electromagnetic safety of your active implant or something like this. Obviously, you can do that once and then you're good to go. But with cybersecurity, the environment is changing, the threat landscape is changing. So something that you can be perceived as as cyber secure for a given environment right now, even though the product doesn't change, this is something the outside world can change, which makes the product at the end of the day maybe more vulnerable. And there's also an expectation from the regulators. So both the FDA and the EU authorities basically emphasize that security or cybersecurity is done by design, again, throughout the product lifecycle, which means whenever you change your product, but also when the environment is changing, that you obey that and that you take care of that, and yeah, potentially also do a retest of your penetration test. So, and again, in accordance to the questions that are being asked, some of them are asking for guidance paper and more standards and things like that. So basically, to prove that you and your company have understood that, and that cybersecurity is not just a static thing, it can be very helpful to also have a closer look at guidance papers. By the way, you can also find that in that PDF that you can download. Don't forget that. You can look, for example, into the MDCG 2019-16 or into the Team NB position paper on cybersecurity, or into IEC 81001-5-1. Even though that is not, yeah, I love saying that. even though this standard is not harmonized yet, it can give you a very good and practically approachable topics how you can basically tackle cybersecurity in the product lifecycle. Yeah.
Well, I would like to ask, like, since you mentioned dynamic, to be more realistic, I have another question.
Yeah.
Like, when you see cybersecurity documents and processes in general, so it's all dynamic, we all know that, yeah, but what gives you the confidence that a manufacturer really understands the relevance of the topic?
Yeah, by even though running the risk that I'm repeating things that you, Trisha, and Marco have already said, but also to double down on that, that it's important, or confidence comes from seeing cybersecurity basically as a continuous integrated risk management activity and not just an afterthought or a checkbox. So again, a red thread that goes through the documentation, and seeing that this has been approached holistically. Holistically also means that, that cybersecurity is integrated into the overall quality and risk management system, and it's not just treated as a separate topic, basically. So it's important to show how and what cybersecurity risks are linked to the patient safety risk, and how you are actually mitigating these. So don't just try to tick random boxes. Like, have a look and have an honest conversation, ideally as a cross-functional team, to see, okay, what are we really looking at? What could actually be real problems here? So don't leave cybersecurity to the IT people, or just the software engineers, or somebody who has cybersecurity in their title. That rarely works. Have an honest conversation and see how you can, where are risks, where you can mitigate them. Even have a look, it comes down to selecting the right components for your software. Like, have a look at when you're selecting these components. Have a look at what could be potential vulnerabilities that you're sort of buying yourself by adding these software components into your software, basically. But also have understanding. So we're talking very much about sort of defensive measures, like what can you do before, what can you do during all of this in regard to your product. What's also important is understand what you're doing when pardon my French, when shit is hitting the fan. Like, how are you dealing with the fact that, there is a vulnerability and that has been exploited? Like, how are you managing this, and how do you inform your customers? Like, what are the processes that you have in place? And again, documentation is what we can look at, obviously, because it's clear evidence, but also really understand that and really have that as part of your company culture, and as part of the things that you really do. Because the last thing you want when you had an incident is not knowing what to do next. You basically want to have a clear structure. There, a checkbox comes in very handy. You want to have a clear understanding how you want to approach that step by step, so you're not running around like wild geese. I was an ICU nurse back in the day, so when you did CPR on a patient, it was very clear what you're doing step by step, and I would maybe draw that analogy. This was fun turning around the table. Now I can turn it back to you again. So, Marco, this one is for you. Without naming names, without putting the blame on anybody or anything, like, have you ever had a product in your hand, or virtually in your hand, by holding the documentation, where you thought, holy macaroni, like I would not want to be like either the patient that this device is connected to, or I don't know, the owner of a hospital or something like that, where that device might be part of the infrastructure and the environment.
I didn't say holy macaroni because being Italian, you know that we don't mess around with pasta, so you know. But I would say that the most boring case for me was for a dialysis machine. Yeah. Which was affected by the line of service attack on the field in the hospital. Yeah. And all the machines in the dialysis room that were connected to the network were basically bricked all at the same time. And all the patients couldn't have a treatment for the day and had to be either dismissed or transferred to another hospital depending on their condition. So that was a huge impact in terms of people, in terms of patients and their health, and all of them at the same time. So that is something that really led me to think, is this really safe, not only secure, you know, because this is when there is the interaction between security and safety, and that is when things really get nasty, you know. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for that one. And yeah, last but not least, we're talking about AI and AI aspects. So this is a hot topic, and this is huge. And yeah, Trisha, I couldn't be more happy that you're on this call and helping us to find answers to all of these things. Yeah, there are already a few questions in the chat, and we'll dive into them in a little bit. So AI is a hot topic basically everywhere, not just in medical devices, but in every industry. From your perspective, Trisha, what makes AI in medical devices special, and what are the particular challenges in AI-enabled medical devices?
Okay, so basically there are two aspects of it, regulatory and technical. So from the regulatory standpoint, when it comes to AI, we are dealing with two layers of regulation. The AI Act, which is broad, and it covers everything from chatbots to industrial robots. And whereas on the other side, you have this MDR, which is specific to the medical world. And, so figuring out how these two frameworks fit in together is already a challenge at the moment. And then also from the technical perspective, the applicability and the adoption of these regulations require a lot of clarity and common understanding throughout, right, for the various stakeholders. So AI is, it's huge, and it's a hot topic because it can change, it can learn, it can adapt. It is so dynamic. You just mentioned dynamic in cybersecurity. It's getting more and more dynamic now. But MDR, on the other hand, it expects devices to be more stable, predictable, and to be validated in the end. And so this is a huge challenge, like keeping the algorithm controlled while still getting the benefits of the AI. So this is the balance that we are trying to achieve, and hopefully we get there.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, there's also a funny question. not funny, but interesting question from Joost. Thank you in the comments. Like a big animal in the room. I guess that refers to an elephant potentially. How is AI influencing compliance industry for medical devices? I guess compliance industry. Maybe you mean us or other consultancies and things like that. And I personally think, of course, it's influencing our industry, and it's influencing also the way that we work. We're using AI even internally for some purposes and to make our processes more lean and also to harness the power of the technology. Obviously, I wouldn't say that we're there that the machine is doing everything. Of course not. I mean, where is it doing that? But of course it's changing, and we're adapting to that. And it's interesting to also see this from this different aspects. But Trisha, when you mentioned AI Act, you mentioned MDR, the AI Act, to talk about another hot topic. It's also a hot topic that is being discussed right now, and there are also a lot of question marks potentially connected to that. So with the MDR, the IVDR today, with the AI Act in the future, how can I learn if I want to get into these devices? How can I learn what is relevant to bring AI-enabled medical devices to the market today? Like, what can I do now, and what do I need to keep sort of on my radar for the future that I might have to take into account?
Yeah. So right now, basically, the MDR and the IVDR are the main frameworks, I would say, that actually apply. So they are the ones you need to comply with today. If you are bringing AI-enabled devices to the market. So the focus should be on meeting all the MDR requirements, things like intended purpose, classification, or risk classification, software, lifecycle, clinical evaluation, and PMS, let's say. So, but at the same time, it is smart to keep an eye on the AI Act as well, because it will be an add-on layer of expectation once it gets into force. Yeah. So the good news is that many of the MDR principles are already closely aligned with the AI Act, such as risk management and things like that. To stay up to date with the resources, you can look out for European Commission website. There are, like, the EU Act implementation updates are already available there. Some of the MDCG guidance is also available. And as a notified body, we also refer to the Team NB questionnaire. That's available online, and in fact we contributed to the development of it. So it provides a very detailed checklist for assessing the AI-enabled medical devices under the MDR. So that's the thing. So it's not compliant to EU Act yet. It's strictly aligned to following the MDR requirements for now.
Yeah.
Also, there are standardization bodies actively working in this domain, and there are a lot of documents in quality management, life cycle management, and things like that. So overall, in short, I would say that comply with the MDR today, but design your systems with the AI Act in mind. So that way you will be ready for the future rather than having it redesigned later.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so if I understand you correctly, the best thing people can do today is get that Team NB questionnaire and work their way through it.
There were many.
There are also a lot of questions here about, like, what is happening today, like what is the Team NB questionnaire and things like that. And and you also mentioned the EU Commission and guidance papers and things like that. And obviously they can also talk to us and ask us how we are preparing for it, because there was a question like, is TÜV Süd going to do conformity assessments for the AI Act? And the answer is yes, absolutely. And we're preparing for that. Looking at the time, so time flies when you're having fun. We're already through, and we actually had much more questions, but again, this is the first time we're trying this format, and it would be really, really great to hear how you like this format. Like, put it in the comments, or even better, you get a questionnaire afterwards. So feel free to put in your comments on this. Was this a waste of time? Was this boring? Would you like to see more slides? What are your thoughts on this? Because we would be very grateful to get that feedback and to learn more from you, and as manufacturers, as the industry, like how can we support preparing basically for conformity assessments and things like that. We want to understand the questions that you have basically, so we can provide answers. Thank you, Marco, and thank you, Trisha, so much for doing this experiment with me. I'm very happy, and thanks again for
thanks,
being
Malte.
here. And this was fantastic.
Thanks very much.
Yes, thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye.